Hey guys, welcome to She Knows Arsenal. My name is Jessica. I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at @itchjacino. And we're doing daily news again. Yay! It's so difficult to find news because like nothing is really happening. So I had to like almost make it up myself. No, I'm not like making up headlines, but you know what I mean. Like, what can I try to create? Um, what can I long out a little bit more so we can have more conversations around it? It's not quite transfer window time, but there are some rumors swirling around. And pretty much during this show, we're going to be talking about the transfer window in terms of strikers. We can even talk about in terms of the summer. I think a striker will be coming in the summer, but we'll kind of talk about it. I got it under control. I promise I do. But yeah, let me let people know that we're live. I forgot to do that. I'm sorry I'm late, but it's been a crazy morning. But in the meantime, you guys let me know where you guys are watching in from. We're going to be talking about Martinelli. There's been some new news about Lacazette that has come out, as well as Alexander Isak and other um, striker options for the summer slash maybe even January. All right, people know we're live. Let's see who's in the chat. Hey Teza, how are you? Or Tezzy? Izzy says hi to you as well. King Sate, Gambi, and Gunnar says big up, Jess. Smash the likes, everybody. Thank you guys so much. Again, how things are working now is I'm trying to get you guys 2 shows per day. Quite difficult when there's no news, but I'm kind of like, okay, when the January transfer window shows up, then we're going to be really cooking, and then you guys are going to be all excited. But right now, we just have to kind of like just dig through the news and see what we can find. And later on today, it's going to be a tactical talk with George. We're going to be discussing XG. There's been a lot of graphics going around our XG and lack of goals and all of that. So we're going to be discussing that. Arsenal's use of the half space, as well as our build-up play in the first half of the Liverpool game. Those are things that we're going to be talking about a little bit later. And we're going to open up this Tactical Tuesday to everybody. Usually it's just for members, but it's going to be for everybody this afternoon at 10 p.m. UK time. So make sure you join us then. But let's go ahead and get started. Arsenal Granny is in Austin. Awesome. Merry Christmas is Canada West. Kadeem says, I'm Evertonian. Keep up the good work. Amazing. Thank you guys so much. Tezzy Mai says, I'm in Ireland. Amazing. I love Irish accents. Like now I've gotten to the point where I can recognize the Scottish accent, different types of English accents, and the Irish accent. And the Irish accent is so cool. It's probably, I don't know, maybe I'm just lame. Maybe you guys think I have an awesome accent, maybe, but the Irish accent is super cool. But let's start out with this let's start off with Lacazette. So originally when I was like, okay, we're going to talk about Lacazette, we're going to talk about the contract situation that he has. Because maybe about a week ago, the news was that, Arsenal were considering giving him a short-term contract, and that had come out from the Athletic. Basically what they said is Alexander Lacazette, who is in the last year of his deal at AFC, is one of a number of players to have impressed recently. Arsenal are open to keeping him, but aren't willing to offer him a long-term deal he desires. And that came from Gunnerblog / David Ornstein. And I thought to myself when that had come out that absolutely not. We can't extend Lacazette even for a short term. I just didn't see how that would benefit us in any sort of way. Although I do think that Lacazette's energy and attitude and leadership has been so great as of late, it worries me when we make these decisions to extend players that are not going to really improve us. They don't really give us anything. And ultimately, I think Lacazette blocks the path of Martinelli potentially. And so for me, when that report had come out, I thought absolutely not. I know that there was some debate, some Arsenal fans were like, it'd be nice to have some more backup, some more experienced players in the dressing room, but he's being paid 200 grand a week. And I had a hard time believing that one, he would reduce his salary to stay here for a short-term contract, but that it would be a good idea to keep somebody who's on such a high wage to play a backup role when 200 grand a week can go a long way to securing, a big striker prospect in the future. So for me, it was a non-starter at all. You guys let me know what you guys thought originally of Lacazette and the potential for him to get a contract. Were you guys for it? Were you guys not for it? Let me know. And I'm just going to pull up the other report that had just come out. So just a couple of minutes ago, before I started, this popped up, which I'm kind of glad it popped up before I actually pressed live, that Arsenal have decided not to renew Alexander Lacazette as the player favors a move to Atletico Madrid. It's interesting because Lacazette has been linked to Atletico Madrid a lot over the last 2 years. And I never really knew whether or not that was feasible, because when I look at Atletico Madrid, I think, okay, they have Suarez, they have like a couple of different attacking options, João Felix, of course. And I was like, well, why would they want him? Actually, I don't care why they'd want him. At this point, he's going to leave on a free, most likely. And it doesn't really matter where he goes, but we need to allow him to go. I think the best possible thing for Arsenal is to allow him to go on a free. There's no way that anybody is going to get him in January and take him off of our hands. I just don't see him being the type of striker that somebody's going to be like, we need him in January to score us goals, because quite frankly, Lacazette is not a goal scoring machine. He's a second kind of striker that facilitates play for another striker. And usually in January, if you're looking for a striker, you're looking for somebody to score you some goals. And so for me, he's going to leave on a free at the end of the season. It's just, Lacazette, I think, was a very good player when he first came to Arsenal, but just didn't hit the heights. And we should just let him go at this point. We have two aging strikers. I think we can kind of use Aubameyang a little bit more. So for me, it's time to let him go. But I was happy to kind of see that report, because I think them offering him the short-term contract is kind of a nice way of saying, we kind of want you to go, because they know that they're not going to accept that shorter-term contract with a lower wage. Quite similarly to, I think, what we did to David Luiz. David Luiz was also looking for a longer term contract. And I think at that point were like, okay, we'll offer you something short with lesser wages. And I think that's a nice way of saying, we kind of want you to go. But let's see what you guys are saying. Jose Flores is saying, as good as Locke has been, it's time to move on. And if we want to move forward as a club, we have to let these players go, of course. I mean, we're looking at a situation now where, although I understand where the club is coming from in terms of not selling Xhaka for so cheap, I think not getting that hallmark pillar of our central midfield has ultimately backfired on us again this season. Our midfield is really weak. And although even if Xhaka was there, I think it would be better. But it's quite clear to me that Arsenal need a midfield dynamo in there, somebody to sit in there next to Thomas Partey. And when we play the bigger teams, when we play teams that press us, we don't feel like we're under threat. And not making that decision and choosing to extend Xhaka in the hopes that, somebody will want to buy him a little bit later and will protect his value, for me, seems like a good plan. But ultimately, I feel like will backfire on us, because I don't even see anybody wanting to buy him for more than 15 million. I can't see it personally. So let's not make the same mistake with an older Lacazette. You can say that Xhaka is still in his prime. I think we can confidently say Lacazette is a little bit beyond his prime at this point. Bob Reed says, I would be okay with another 2 years for Laka, but at the same time, I think we really need to overhaul our front line. Yeah, for sure. Lalitia says, I think we should keep only one of Xhaka and Laka for leadership reasons. Technically, Xhaka seems more indispensable to our midfield than Laka is to our forward line. And I do agree with that at some point, there has to be a certain number of experienced players in this team. We can't expect this young group to just kind of like live without any sort of experienced players in and amongst the team. And I think part of why Lacazette was brought back in was not just because we needed a physical presence up top, was because Xhaka was gone. And so we had no real leadership in the team, because as I know Aubameyang has the captain's armband, but let's be real, he's not really a leader in that way. There's nobody in the back that's a leader really or has a lot of experience. So I almost feel like Lacazette was brought in to substitute for Xhaka. Now, when you look at the two of them, I think it's pretty clear that if you had to keep one of them, you probably would keep Granit, even though nobody's really sold on Granit. It's going to be interesting to see. Arsenal need to buy a marquee center midfielder this summer. And I want to see us, regardless to whether Xhaka is sold or not, do that. I actually don't think it would be a bad idea to have Granit as an option for midfield, plus a really good central midfielder as well. But there's also would Granit want to be somebody that's fighting for time? He's never fought for time at Arsenal. I don't think he's ever fought for time at any club that he's been at. He's always kind of been first name on the team sheet. I personally wouldn't mind if he stayed or left, but regardless, Arsenal need to buy a hallmark midfielder, regardless to if Granit leaves or not. But yes, if you had to choose between Laka or Xhaka, I think you'd keep Xhaka. I hope so. Bowie the Cat says, I'd be tempted to keep him for another year and invest heavily in a central midfielder. That's interesting. I have seen like some Arsenal fans do feel like we just need to bring in the central midfielder and then everything will be fine up front. I think we're really lacking personality, dynamism, decision-making, pure goal scoring ability up top. And so I personally don't feel like we can go without bringing in a striker. But if you ask me what's more important, I think central midfield is definitely more important. Mad Sports Network, who I think is this you, Gav? Says, I think it's only worth letting either of them go if we can make a few quid. If they're going for free, they may as well stay. That's interesting. That's interesting. I just feel sometimes the energy needs to just be lifted. I think about take Crystal Palace, for example. They had like 8 players at the end of their contracts at the end of last season when Roy Hodgson left. And I feel like the lightness that's at that club now, just based on some of those players just going away. I mean, they could have probably kept some of them, really extended them because you need experience. But I get that you want to get a couple of dollars from them. If you don't, it's worth maybe keeping them around. But I almost feel like there's a heaviness. This may just be me reading into things too much, but I feel like there might be a heaviness that comes with some of these players that have been a part of this team during its decline. Let's be real. Aubameyang, Lacazette, Leno, and Granit have all been a part of Arsenal teams that have been relatively unsuccessful and are synonymous with the decline of the club over the last 5 years. And I just feel like the lightness that I've personally felt not seeing Leno in goal, not seeing Mustafi here anymore, not seeing Sead Kolasinac in there, not seeing Socrates anymore, makes it, even though we didn't make any money off of those players. I know Sead Kolasinac is still here, but even though we haven't made any money off of these players, not having Mesut Ozil here either, it just feels lighter. And although I don't think Aubameyang and Lacazette are necessarily problematic, I don't think Granit Xhaka is as bad as people make him out to seem. I just feel like their presence is synonymous with a very dark time for Arsenal, and letting them go even for free, for me, is just turning the page on a very dark chapter of our club's history. So I prefer turning the page over keeping them because we can't sell them. That's where I kind of land with that whole thing. And also you free up wages. And that's the other part of it, is that, okay, well, you may be keeping them because you can't sell them, but you also still have to pay them. You're still going to have to pay, Granit 120 grand a week. You're still going to be paying Lacazette 200 grand a week. And those wages could go a long way, I think. Tony says Laka is going to get a juicy free contract, his last big contract, not going to take a short-term deal with us for less money, of course. I saw a question. So we will talk about striker options in terms of who we could buy in just a couple of minutes. I see some questions about En-Nesyri as well as Luka Jovic. We will talk about those in just a second. King Sate says, what is your view on midfield? We are missing a player that can dictate the game by passing like Rodri, Jorginho, Thiago, etc. But also we need a DM like Basuma or Kessie. Who do we get first? I ask everybody this question as well, because I think it's so interesting to see what school of thought you come from when it comes to midfield and how you build a successful and competitive midfield going forward. For me personally, I feel like you need to get the number 6 first. I think you need to get the Basuma/Kessie first, because we have Thomas Partey and we only have him at his prime for a certain amount of time. And he is going to thrive next to a number 6. And not only that, a number 6 allows you to play with a midfield 3, which is what a lot of Arsenal fans really want. A lot of Arsenal fans really want to be able to play a 4-3-3 with a single pivot. That might not be something that we do right away, because again, I don't think you can really get the best out of Thomas Partey playing in a midfield 3. I don't think he suits it. I think he's better kind of in a midfield pivot with somebody that's a little bit more destructive, and then like a number 10. You could play him as an 8. That's fine, but I just don't think it's best for him. But when you look 2 years forward and Thomas is a little bit older and maybe he's not starting all the time, then that number 6 can easily play with a Martin Odegaard or somebody like an Awar, players of that profile, because you have that person that can kind of sweep up. So I think the midfield 6 opens up the gateway for us to play a different formation, but also gets the best out of Thomas Partey. Whereas if you bring in somebody like, if you bring in an Awar now, you're not going to play Thomas Partey and Awar in a pivot. You're just not going to. You'll get killed. This is not League 1. Like, you have to have somebody more defensive. So that's what I would go with first. That's definitely what I'd go for first. Let's see. Yeah, you guys are all in the midfield conversation. I love that. And we'll have tons of these going forward, because when Arsenal do decide to buy that marquee midfielder, we'll know what midfield we're going to be going for. In this past summer, it was light links to Basuma, very light links to Basuma, very faint, almost like it felt like the fan base were creating them more than anybody credible from the club. And then you had very strong links to Ruben Neves, Locatelli, who are more in the mold of Granit Xhaka. And that worries me. That's not what I would prefer. I don't really like a deep lying playmaker, especially if it's not like Santi. Santi was more than a deep lying playmaker. He did so many things, and I just feel when you hitch your wagon to these players that are not super mobile, that are kind of like, I want to stand in the center circle and ping balls, in different directions and stuff, it limits you, I feel like, in midfield. So it'll be interesting to see what direction the club goes in. It really will. So now let's pivot to Martinelli. Martinelli, when I woke up this morning, I was like, what's trending? Martinelli is trending, which usually happens when he doesn't play and it feels like we need a goal. Now, the Liverpool game, although we needed a goal, we were out of that game. So I don't necessarily feel like him not coming in was any indication of, mistreatment from Arteta, or, a bad non-substitution. We clearly were trying to limit damage at a certain point, and I don't think Martinelli would have helped us there. But there is a growing anxiety from the fan base not seeing this young player get into the squad. And I just want to know what you guys think about it. I'm going to share my screen, and this is a tweet from, obviously it's AFTV. You guys, I don't have anything against them whatsoever, but this is a tweet from Dan Potts, somebody who I know very well. And he'll actually be on the show next week, next Tuesday. I'll be chatting with him kind of on his ideas about what's going on with the club. But essentially, he says, Balogun needs a loan. Eddie is not good enough. Martinelli isn't rated by the manager. Not good enough. Under Emery, he had 10 goals and looked like a wonder kid. Arteta doesn't rate him highly, so he has 2 years of no development. Shame, but we need 2 strikers in the summer and another DM. So, and I found this to be really interesting, just because I personally don't know if I believe that Arteta doesn't necessarily rate Martinelli, and I don't think it's I think not mentioning the fact that he basically tore his meniscus is denying that that has stopped his development. It's more about him having that injury than anything. Um, I think you have to mention that. But do you guys have a growing anxiety around Martinelli not getting playing time? And do you think that he could be used a little bit better to get our attack ticking? What position do you really view him as? Do you think he needs a loan? I want to know what you guys think. There's about 60 of you guys right now watching the show. Like the video and subscribe to the channel and let me know what you guys think about Martinelli and how you would use him. Would you give him a loan? What do you think about that? There has been, a reluctancy from Arteta to bring him in, but I also feel like he's ahead of the pecking order he's ahead in the pecking order in front of Pepe now. Pepe wasn't brought in against Watford. Martinelli was on the right. So I think that shows that Arteta views him as somebody that he can use ahead of Pepe, who's very much so on the outs right now. But I personally don't share that anxiety. I feel like he'll get his time during AFCON, but what do you think Arteta is going to do? It's really interesting what's going on with Martinelli or what's not going on with Martinelli. I was talking to Jared Carver yesterday about what we could potentially do against Newcastle or even during AFCON when Aubameyang is not here. And during our conversation, I said we could do one of two things. Arteta can look at the front line and say, I want to integrate Martin Odegaard back in, take Aubameyang out, move Lacazette up, and then that's in Emile Smith-Rowe and Saka stay in their respective positions. Or Martinelli can just play the Aubameyang role, and we keep everything the same. Lacazette plays in the 10 role. He supports Martinelli. Martinelli plays as the 9. Emile Smith-Rowe plays off to the left, and Saka plays off of the right. Do I believe that Arteta is going to go for that? If I had to put money on it, I feel like Arteta is going to bring Martin Odegaard back in. But I feel like Martinelli needs some playing time. And when I think about that, I'm like, where is he going to get the playing time? If Arteta does decide to just bring Martin Odegaard back in, Martinelli won't get playing time. Does he need a loan? Would that kill his career if he took 1 year and took a loan somewhere to develop? It's interesting, It's interesting. Dublin Gooner says, people talk about Martinelli like he never had a major injury. He did, and it set him back. Patience. Moe the Cat says, I think Martinelli will get his chance this season, and I agree with you that Arteta was correct not to bring him on against Liverpool. Yeah, for me, it's like we need a goal, but did we really need a goal? Like, we really needed to keep the score tighter. Like, at the beginning of the second half, we just threw away the game. And from that moment on, I don't think anybody that would have come in that front four would have done anything different, in my opinion, because we weren't even getting the ball to supply the front line. So Martinelli wouldn't have made a difference. FC Unknown says, no bigger Martinelli fan than me from day one, but he is young. It's only November and he's 20 years old. Patience. C. Walder says, I don't worry unless he's showing signs of getting restless. Yeah, exactly. I think his father, his agent, has come out and said that, there have been offers from different clubs in Europe, but Arsenal have already said that they're not interested in loaning him nor selling him. So there obviously is an eye to using Martinelli, but we've also known Arteta to keep players just in case and still not play them. So I also don't feel like it's a guarantee. I think there are more opportunities for him to play as the season goes on. Do I think that those opportunities will be taken advantage of by Arteta? I'm not sure. I could easily see him choosing Odegaard over Martinelli moving forward when Aubameyang is not here. Boo Boo Baba says, where's George? Does he have his own channel? He does. Him and Karan have a channel called Ball Over Passion, but George will also be on later at 10 p.m. UK time to do our Tactical Tuesday. So if you want to see George here, you can do that at 10 p.m. or you can go to his channel on Ball Over Passion. Just type it in YouTube and it'll pop up. Mad Sports Network says, I'd loan Balogun and Martinelli, and Ketia we can cash in on before he's out of contract. And yes, it's Gav. Gav will be on the channel on Wednesday. to talk anything but Arsenal. It's a new show that I've thought of that kind of is good because it'll be Champions League. We can talk about that. We can talk about different teams, the new managers that have come in in different leagues and all of that. So Gab will be on. But I'd loan both Balogun and Martinelli. I think there's a real reluctancy from the fan base to see Martinelli loaned out. I don't know if I feel as I don't feel as strongly about like that loaning him out would be detrimental to him in any sort of way. I think we're just really desperate to see him. So loaning him out would mean that we don't get to. But I mean, had he not scored those 10 goals in his first season, I don't think we would be so devastated if a 20-year-old that's not really getting any playing time got loaned out. I think it's because we're convinced that he's a superstar. Bob Reed says, yeah, I think Arteta is doing the right thing with Gabby. I have no doubt he will come good for us. He's still very young and has players ahead of him regarding seniority. Exactly. Yo-Yo says, I said he should have been loaned in the summer with Balogun. I bring them back in January with a full head of steam, having played against grown men consistently. It will prove counterproductive now. Interesting. Bro Pro says, the reason Martinelli doesn't play is because Arteta wants consistent technical security, and maybe ESR and Saka have advanced their grasp on the tactical understanding. That is a really good point, Bro Pro. Like, I've kind of seen it in that way as well, that if you look at the players that don't play and the players that do, Pepe and Martinelli are arguably bigger goal threats than ESR and Bukayo Saka. But ESR and Saka have more of a technical security. I think they're more tactically aware, and they will take the safe option more than the risky option more times than not. And so you have a little bit of that push and pull, where I remember when we played against West Ham, when Freddie Ljungberg, I think he was the interim at the time, and Aubameyang and Martinelli played up top. They scored 3 goals. Now in Arteta's system, there's this idea that those players can't play together. Those players can't play together. They can if we play in a way that is different to the way that we play now. And so I don't think it's necessarily that they can't play together and that they would not score goals. It's just you have to be okay knowing that they're going to give up the ball a lot, because they just are not safe players. They are take a player on, lose it, take a player on, lose it, make the wrong decision. But what they will give you is a goal. What Saka and ESR are lacking is that punch. They really are lacking it. I see them take shots when it's not on and defer when they should be shooting. There is a good opportunity for Bukayo to slip ESR in one of the small chances or half chances that we had against Liverpool. And he chose to hold on to it and shoot. And then when we want him to shoot, he passes. And so it's interesting because I think there's some Arsenal fans that just want to see the goal scorers get on the pitch, but Arteta tends to hold back and wants more of the technically secure players out there on the pitch. And I think there's room to find balance. I think when you play ESR and Saka, if we're not playing lower level opposition, we do lack that goal scoring punch. And when Martinelli started playing at the back end of last season, he did score a goal against Crystal Palace. I remember that. But then also when he played against Sheffield, I remember Lacazette played up top. I think Pepe played off of the right and Saka played in the 10 role. Martinelli was off of the left. Every time he got the ball, he shot it. He was a goal threat every single time. It was like out of your foot, shot. And I just think sometimes we do lack that. It's not always about having the technical players out there. I think you can have a less technically secure player out there that gives you more chances of scoring and get some sort of balance. And sometimes I don't think Arteta gets that right. AZ says, I'd rather give Martinelli playing time instead of Abalaka, who are on their way out probably. Good point. Banky Atkins says, hey, Banky, says, I think people forget so soon what huge impact such an injury can cause to a young player. Loaning him out to a lesser pressure team to get a run of games and his confidence back will do the club good. Good point. I don't think it would be that detrimental for Martinelli to go on a loan. I really don't see it as being the end of the world. I really don't. Um, C. Walder says, I was hoping Balogun would have been loaned out for 6 months, but I was glad in the end that we kept Martinelli, just in case Abalaka were out at the same time. Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, Balogun has already said that he trusts Arteta with his career, but he's willing to do something different. So I would imagine he gets loaned out. We know Eddie's on the way out, and we're hoping that at the back end of the season, Martinelli gets some more playing time. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't utilize somebody like him. I don't think he's anywhere near, how do I say this? I don't think he's the player that we projected him to be because of those 10 goals that he scored. I don't think he's that player yet. I'm not going to say those were lucky goals. What I would say is that him and Saka had a very huge impact on the team when the team was at a very, very low point. And what's happened is that other teams have figured us out. And I don't think Martinelli and Saka have that same ability to just connect on the left-hand side and tear teams apart the way that they did when they first came into the team. And he needs a little bit more structure. He can potentially be the player that we're projecting him to be and that a lot of people think he is. But is he that player now? I don't think so. And I don't think Arteta is holding him back from becoming that player. But he does need playing time. And if it's not going to come at Arsenal, maybe he does need a loan. Yo-Yo says Arteta and Edu have banked this season on Xhaka and Partey, so all of the attack issues depend on this partnership. You love a partnership talk, Yo-Yo. But I do agree with you that partnerships are important. And it's so quickly that we have not seen Partey and Xhaka really play together this season. I think we've seen them play together one time this season. Who knows when's the next time we'll see it. And I still think we should have brought in a midfielder. Ozzy says, Martinelli got his chance at the start of the season and he did nothing. When the results don't go our way, people always say someone else should have played. I mean, that does play a part in it that, whoever was on the bench should have played, and that would have changed the results. Martinelli conversations always come up when we don't play well. They always do. He would have done something different. And I don't think he would have against Liverpool. What I will say is that, yes, when he has had opportunities to play, he hasn't done well. But I think it's also because he's so desperate to prove himself that he's almost losing his head in those moments and he just needs to calm down. But this is why maybe a loan would be something beneficial to him because he doesn't have that pressure of having to try to prove himself in those 5 minutes that he has, 10 minutes here, 2 minutes here. If he knows he's going to be playing almost day in and day out on a lower level team and just was playing adult football, he may be able to gain that form back that we saw when he first came into the team without that pressure of trying to always impress. Oh my gosh, not Almiron. Now, Antonin, do not call Martinelli Almiron. Almiron is not great. Martinelli is definitely better than Almiron, I think. I don't think he has the trajectory of Almiron at this point. But yeah. So Martinelli, I think we all kind of have similar feelings, but some people would be a little bit more open to a loan. The knee injury is something that needs to be brought into perspective. You can't just pretend like he did not tear his meniscus, and that is a very devastating injury for such a young player. But yeah, we'll see what happens in the next couple of months and see if he gets some playing time. But there's 60 of you guys watching. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. And now we're going to talk a little bit about striker options moving forward. I saw some questions about Luka Jovic and Yusuf El-Nassiri. We've had stronger links to Alexander Isak in the last couple of weeks. There are different schools of thought. Do we need a complete 9? Do we need a false 9? Do we need somebody that's going to run in behind? A lot of Arsenal fans are really high on Osimhen that plays for Napoli. And it's just We need a striker, don't we? I think every time I watch a game and I see Lacazette and Aubameyang play, I'm just like, "Ooh, I can't wait for the day for us to have a really good striker." Over the years, Arsenal has had very, very good strikers. I mean, we went through our ups and downs with the Shamaks of the world and the Yaya Sanogos, but traditionally we have great strikers. Thierry Henry, obviously, Ian Wright, Robin van Persie, Adebayor, I thought was a very good striker. An asshole, but a good striker. Kanu, Will Tord, um, Aubameyang. So we like a striker. Giroud, I don't think he was as bad as people made him out to seem. Um, we need a striker. We need somebody up there. But I want to know from you guys, what kind of striker are you looking to come in? Do you want a false nine? Do you want to play more of a Pep style where, the person at the tippy top of the front line is more of a facilitator? Do you want more of a Firmino type striker? Do you want a hold up guy? Do you want somebody like a Giroud that is a physical presence, can hold the ball up? Do you want somebody like a younger Aubameyang, an Osimhen type that is really fast and can run in behind? Um, what do you think? I think it's interesting to know, like, or to understand what the fan base thinks in terms of how they envision an Arsenal striker looking, because make no mistake about it, the person that we bring in this summer is going to be the pillar of our front line and will pretty much be what we build everything else around. The midfielder is very similar to that. The midfielder that we bring in is how we build the team. The striker, we build the team around that person. And so I think that person is going to be somebody who you can see them working well with Emile Smith Rowe and Bakayo, maybe even somebody that you can see getting on the end of passes from Martin Odegaard. Because I think Martin Odegaard suffers a little bit from not having a physical striker in and around him to knock balls down to him so that he can slip those balls in behind like he did at Real Sociedad. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, but I want to get your guys's ideas. Do you think you need like a younger Aubameyang, somebody like a Robin van Persie who was very all around? I know he was a snake and he wasn't loyal, but he was a special striker, and I haven't seen us really get somebody of that quality back in, like Robin van Persie. He was really special. Mohammed says, we need a complete striker like Isak or Vlahovic. Dublin Gunner says, not a false nine. It only works if you get bags of goals from the flanks, and that's not who we are right now. I'm so glad you said that, because when you look at Bakayo, when you look at Emile Smith Rowe, you look at Martin Odegaard, these guys don't score a lot of goals. And we can project them to be goal scorers in the future, but I don't get the vibe that they're going to be. I think Emile Smith Rowe has more of a ceiling to be um, a real contributor when it comes to goals. But when I look at Bakayo, I don't really see that. So whoever's playing up top has got to be able to score 20 goals a season, I think. Ozzy says, I don't think Isak will get us 15 to 20 goals, and I think he's very young. We need someone who already has those numbers and a bit different, like between 25 and 28 years old. Yeah, there's also the aspect of, do we need another project? Like Martinelli and Balogun are already projects. They're already players that we're looking at within the next 3 to 4 years to be who we expect them to be for Arsenal. Alexander Isak is a very interesting striker. When I watch him play, I think, when you just get a feeling like this is an Arsenal player, he is an Arsenal player. He has the ability to not only score goals, but he can come out wide. He kind of has the Aubameyang about him, but also the Thierry Henry about him, where he can kind of dribble through players. Aubameyang can't dribble through players. Alexander Isak can, but Alexander Isak has the ability to come out wide, cut in, and hit that ball back post, just like Aubameyang does. He's a physical presence, but he's a little clumsy. It can't be easy being like 6'4", 6'5" years old, like 6'5", 6'4", 6'5" in height, and be kind of growing into your body while trying to become like a striker. I would expect him to buck up, as time goes on. but he's really young. He's really young. I watch him play and I think he's a project, and it may be okay because you have a Aubameyang, you know, behind him that, if you have the combination of the two of them, you might be okay. But I feel like we do need that pillar, somebody that's going to be able to come straight in, start games, and we're not going to have to revert back to a Aubameyang because this guy is not ready. So I have my apprehensions about Isak. I think long term he would be the style and type of striker that would suit Arsenal Football Club moving forward, especially because his combination with Martin Odegaard when he was on loan at Sociedad, for me, is exactly what you need to get the most out of Martin as well. But he's a project. Do we need another 21-year-old? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. Mary Chris Moss says David as a 10 or 11 in League One goals, 24 caps for Canada, 18 goals, and doing well in the Champions League. Jonathan David is somebody that we did look at. We were heavily linked with him, and at the time I was like, I would take him. This was in the midst of Aubameyang trying to figure out if he wanted to be at Arsenal or not. I remember that time, and Jonathan David came up, and I really like him. I think he has a lot of things that we lack in our front line. He reminds me a little bit of Ollie Watkins with his aggression. He's one of those types where he's small, but he's aggressive and he's really fast. He can hold up the ball. He can beat a man. He can play all across the front line. But can Balogun not be that guy for us in the next couple of years? Do you think that Jonathan David is too dissimilar to Balogun? I think Balogun is very similar to Jonathan David. He's just a couple of years behind him. And who knows, with a couple of like 1 or 2 years in a significant loan with Balogun, could he not be Jonathan David? Do we need Jonathan David if we have Balogun? That's my question. We Move says we need a striker who takes chances as they come, Vlahovic kind of striker. I don't know about that guy. Kelly from Not Another Arsenal podcast, who's been on the show before, advocates for this guy very highly. I have to be honest, I'm not a big Serie A watcher. It's just not my vibe. But when I have watched him, I thought he's a physical beast. Like he's 6'4", but he's like a big guy. And he can do a little bit of build-up play. I think he's like left-footed. He's an exciting prospect. But I think he wants to keep his options open as well. I don't think he's somebody who comes to Arsenal without Champions League football. So I'm not sure if he's really a viable option, but he is a very interesting and exciting player. Blaze says, do you think Dominic Calvert-Lewin can fit into our system? Yes and no. Yes and no. I saw, I'll find it. Somebody made a thread about Dominic Calvert-Lewin and did a more in-depth analysis of what he's good at and what he's not good at. In terms of scoring goals, I think he's proved himself to be somebody that is dominant and scary and somebody that you have to take notice of in the Premier League. Meaning, I don't think he would be as easy to corral as Aubameyang. I think any team in the Premier League is going to look at Dominic Calvert-Lewin and say, this is somebody we need to watch out for. This is somebody that can hurt us. This is somebody that if we switch off for just a second can, make a half chance into a full chance just by being very aggressive, never giving up and taking his half chances. That's the kind of guy he is. When you look at his highlight reels, it's a lot of tap-ins in the box, diving headers, getting on the end of crosses, that kind of thing. So I think somebody like that would help Tierney. We would be able to benefit from those crosses that are coming in from Tierney. Crosses that come in from both sides that aren't necessarily perfect are chances that will become goals because of his industry up top. What he doesn't have is build-up play. He doesn't have that in his bag at all. He's somebody that I don't think he would be able to be an outlet and be able to hold up play, but he doesn't get any assists. He doesn't get any assists. That's something that I noticed, is that he's not somebody that would be able to help with any sort of gameplay in terms of like the front three slipping in, ESR slipping in, Bukayo Saka in those tight seams up top. So if we do become a team that wants to have possession and is pushed up very high and needs to be able to be a little bit more intricate in our play, he wouldn't be able to help us with that at all. So he doesn't have the roundness to his game that I think that we would need. And so that's why at 60 million, 70 million, which is what it would take to bring in Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I don't think he's well-rounded enough for us. But would I take him? Yes. We just know that he wouldn't be able to help us. He would be somebody that I think in a couple of years we'd be like, okay, we need a new striker, you know? C. Finnan says we need a full front three, in my opinion. Saka is okay, but not the answer. Same with ESR, need experienced players. Yeah, I think that's another conversation is we're relying upon ESR and Saka a lot. And that's mostly because I think Pepe is just not really hitting the heights that we expected him to hit. He's 27 years old and he should be able to be the starter, and Saka and ESR filling in and around that. But he's not quite that guy at the moment. And I think there is room for another attacker to come in that's a little bit more experienced that can provide some protection for ESR and Saka, but also competition. So that is something that we could probably look at. Victor Osimhen, kind of talked about him at the beginning of this section. For me, he's an Aubameyang with a little bit more roundness to his game. He scores goals in different ways, but I think his main strength is his speed and being able to run in behind. Excuse me, guys, I need to blow my nose. I have a little bit of a cold, sorry, but Osimhen has the Aubameyang about him running behind, very fast, quick player. But he will get on his head. He'll get his head on the ball, which is something that Aubameyang just does not do. He does not want the ball to hit his head. So he would give you a little bit more of that. How much are we going to have to pay for Victor Osimhen? I mean, Napoli paid 70, 80 million to get him there. So you have to imagine that if they sell him, they're going to want an astronomical amount of money. This is his first good season. If you look back at last season for Napoli, it was not great. This is his first really good season. And I think we need to be a little bit wary of somebody who is on their first good season. Napoli would want to maybe cash in on him and sell him for 100 million. And then we're stuck with somebody who isn't much better than what we already have. So for me, Victor Osimhen is somebody who I'd want to see him play another year at Napoli. If he does the same things, then let's see if we want to bring him in. But I think he's a younger version of Aubameyang with a little bit more roundness to his game, which is great. So we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Olivier says Abraham can collect Ramsdale's ball in the air to ESR and Saka. That's a threat. I do think we missed something with Tammy. To me, I was never a big Tammy Abraham fan, but it's also kind of like don't want any more Chelsea players in it around Arsenal at all. It was a little bit of that. My initial reaction was absolutely not, but under further review, I think Abraham would have done a world of good for us. I think he has enough technical ability where he could get an assist or two. He could have been utilized in tight spaces, but also would be good if we were, kind of playing on the counterattack as well. Had Abraham been in the game instead of Aubameyang, when Ramsdale was hitting the ball long against Liverpool, he could have at least brought it down, collected it, and found somebody, which is something that we just don't have. But now that he's went to Roma, I think that's just done. I don't think he's not somebody that we'd be able to bring in now. Like, they would want an astronomical amount of money for him. And it just wouldn't be worth it at this point. O'Malley says, Yusuf En-Nesyri is a good shout. He's somebody that when we were first linked to, I was linked to him. I was like, okay, this is an interesting under the radar signing. He is not somebody that's going to get the Arsenal fan base like, oh my gosh, like then ultimately they're not going to like this guy like at first, because he's not fancy. He doesn't have a big name, but he does fulfill the requirements in terms of a physical presence in the box, somebody who can be a little bit of a poacher, but also has enough technical quality to link up play. And he's big enough to play in the Premier League. He's like 24, 25 years old. So he does fulfill the requirement of not being a kid. He's not a project. He's not somebody who would need some development when he comes in. It's just a matter of would those goals that he scored in La Liga translate to the Premier League. So he is a good shout. I thought originally they said 45-ish million would be what it would take to get him over. Um, he's not doing very well this season, though. When I looked again to see what he was doing this season, last season he was very, very good. This season, I don't even think he's playing a lot. I'm not sure if he's injured or what, but one to watch. He wouldn't be my first choice, but he is a good shout, a good under the radar signing that's not going to get you off your seat, but may end up being a good typical Arsenal type signing where nobody's really looking at him, but he could end up being something special at Arsenal. You never know. Yo-Yo says, I strongly believe the majority of managers in the Premier League would take Arsenal's forwards. Arteta inherited imperfect players, but they're not the issue. I strongly believe that the majority of managers in the Prem would take Arsenal's forwards. Yeah, I don't think that they're necessarily bad, but what I would say is I don't think they make a good combination of players. I don't think that Aubameyang by himself, I don't think the way that Arteta plays suits Aubameyang, one, and I don't think the players around him are able to supply him with the types of balls that are good for Aubameyang. We know what Aubameyang wants. He wants to be in on goal, one-on-one. Before we became this more, because you have to remember, Aubameyang mostly played, his Arsenal career has been majority under Unai Emery. From my recollection, Unai Emery kind of played a haphazard way where we weren't very structured at all. And we would be able to hit Aubameyang over the top. We would be able to play him into seams in between the center backs, and he'd be one-on-one on goal. He would also be able to get like crosses off tap-ins off of crosses and stuff like that. We just don't play like that. And so it's a combination of not having the quality of player to find him in those spaces, because he does make really good runs and nobody finds him. But also just the fact that like we just don't play a type of game that allows him to run in behind, which is more his bread and butter. If we were a counterattacking team and we just leaned into that, Pepe and Aubameyang would thrive. So I don't necessarily feel like our forwards are not good or nobody else would want him or want them. But the way that we play it just leaves Pepe and Aubameyang and Martinelli out in the cold at the moment. And so if you're going to go all in with Arteta, you kind of have to bring him the strikers and the players that will suit his system, because you can't expect him long-term to just change his system for Aubameyang. It's not going to happen. We did that for a couple of games. We played 3-4-3 and everybody hated it. Everybody hated it because we didn't have possession and we were a counterattacking team. So which way do you want it? Do you want to be in a counterattacking team so you can get Martinelli and Aubameyang and Pepe in the team, but we don't have possession and we kind of just are we're just that type of team? Or do you want to try to build more of a possession-based style and change the forwards? What do we want? We Move says Aubameyang is a softie. Where did Henry and Bergkamps of this world go? Aubameyang is a through the slip ball in behind, one-on-one with the keeper, ball out wide, hit it to his right foot, curl it into the back stick. That is what the kind of striker that he is. So for me, it's not really a problem that he's soft. It's just we require something different now. He could easily place in another team and probably score 20 something goals just because they can get him that type of service. But that's just not what we are. He's never been get in the mixer type striker. That's never been what he is. So I don't hate him for it. I just feel like we need to get somebody like that. Mary says, make top four and a super agent. Odegaard will help us get Haaland in the summer. Haaland's not coming anywhere near Arsenal. Bowie the Cat says, my ideal striker would be Lautaro Martinez. Now, what would suit our strikers, which I think is something that Arteta's never really leaned into, but I would even think that maybe this would help us out if we wanted to play this way, is if he decided to play a 4-3-1-2 and we played with two strikers. I think two strikers gets Martinelli in the team. I think two strikers allows you to play Lacazette and Aubameyang in a two striker system with somebody in behind supplying the create like supplying them, which would be somebody like a Martin Odegaard. It does leave Emil Smith Rowe and Saka a little bit on the outskirts, but that would allow you to get more of these players into the team. And a Lautaro Martinez is somebody that would thrive in it. He only really thrives in a two striker system. That's what I know of him, but he's perfect in it. So if you wanted to play Lautaro Martinez plus somebody else, Lautaro Martinez plus Martinelli, Lautaro Martinez plus Isak, Lautaro Martinez plus even maybe Aubameyang, it would work. I think some of our strikers are better. Some of our attackers are better in a two striker system, even maybe Pepe. So if we did bring in Lautaro Martinez, we'd have to go to a two striker system, which is not something that I've seen Arteta really lean into. He's never really even tried it. And two striker systems are coming back in style. You know, I wouldn't mind seeing it. C. Wilder says, exactly. Physical, a poacher, good link up, just the right amount of ego. Ivan Toney, a lot of people like him. O'Malley says, bring me Usman Dembele on a free transfer. I mean, if you can get him off the hospital, the medical table, maybe. That guy, it's like he's made of glass. You know, I wouldn't. I don't think he has the right mentality either. I have huge questions around whether he's serious or not. So he's not somebody I would ever want to see at Arsenal, to be honest. Ozzy says Andre Silva is the guy we need now. 40 goals and assists last season. Good build-up play, and he's not someone who's afraid of defenders like Abba. What is he doing now for Leipzig? Is he keeping pace with that? I was afraid he was one of those one season and then he's gonna fall off. But what is he doing now? You know, I did a full breakdown on him over the summer, and kind of like the reaction was underwhelming. But I think he's good. I don't know what he's doing this season. Yo-Yo says Arteta extended Aubameyang's contract. Edu rejected Laka's Roma offer. They made their bed long ago. I agree. You know, I have never let go. The Roma offered us something for Lacazette, and we decided to hold on for something bigger. Dumb. Was never going to happen. That was ridiculous. We should have let Lacazette go then. Had we had done that, we would have had space in the team, not only for Martinelli, but for an Abraham to come in this past summer. So I agree that they've made their bed, but at the end of the season, there will be spots open, you know, so we do know that we will need a striker to come in. Yeah. Tony says, I just want tons of goals, build up goals, counter goals, pressing goals, all the goals. Yeah. As an Arsenal fan, I do think it's weird feeling like we're not a good attacking team, because that's what we've been brought up on. No matter what generation of that's not really true, but what I will say is that since Wenger, we have been a great attacking outfit. Even under Unai Emery, we had goals in us. We did. In this new era, we struggle. And I think the fan base struggles, feeling like we're just not a great attacking team. Me and George are going to break that down just a little bit more at 10 p.m. UK time during our tactical talk. We're going to talk a little bit about the Liverpool game and more about our XG and how we use our attackers and stuff like that. And we're not as bad as people make us out to seem, but there's tons of room to grow. But I do want to see what striker Arteta brings in and see if anything improves. I don't think it's as simple as a new striker, but I do think the personnel up top limits what we can do. And ultimately, we have a striker in Aubameyang who I think he doesn't fit the system, but I think he's low on confidence. We have Lacazette, who's just out there playing the number 10. And then you have ESR and Saka, who's not a natural goal scorer, and ESR, who's just kind of finding his way into the team. All of that kind of adds up to not a lot of goals, you know, so that's just kind of how I see it. You guys are talking about Anthony. Are we talking about Anthony from Ajax? Is that the Anthony we're talking about? Would you take Basuma, Anthony, and DCL to strengthen the first 11? Yeah, probably. I mean I mean, I love Basuma. Basuma is still somebody that I feel like I'm gonna feel like we need. I still watch him and I just think, "What could have been?" But of course, I take Basuma. DCL, I still feel like in a couple of years, we'd want something a little bit different, but I think he improves us instantly. And Anthony, if you're talking about Anthony from Ajax, is somebody that I watched him play not yesterday, but the day before. I took some time to watch Ajax play, and I thought, one, Hilaire has had a complete like revolution to his career. I mean, that guy looks completely different than he did at West Ham. Anthony is the type of winger that I feel like Arsenal should look at because he's the type of winger that nobody wants to play against. And I feel like Saka needs some pressure, a little bit, not pressure, but I feel like there needs to be another option besides Bukayo. I do. Pepe is not really an option, but Anthony is somebody that I feel like we could look at as somebody that could play off of the right hand side that gives us something a little bit different. He's a madness. Anthony is a madness. That guy is so good. And at some point, Edu needs to start bringing us Brazilian superstars, doesn't he? Like, what's happening? We need more of them. So Anthony is somebody I definitely look at, and Pedro Neto is somebody that I look at as well. At Wolves, I think he has like 5 goals and 6 assists already off of the back of a really bad injury. Um, I think Pedro Neto is somebody that I would look at, but then also when I look at that left-hand side, I don't know if Arteta is looking for somebody. I think he's looking for maybe more of a 10 to play on that side, but Pedro Neto is somebody that I would look at. Anthony is somebody that I would look at to bolster those front positions to make us more of a threat. I don't think ESR and Saka are enough of a threat at this point. Nkunku, you guys know I love Nkunku. I love Nkunku. Wanted him when Unai Emery first wanted him. I feel like I don't know why he's still there. I don't think he'll be there after this season. He's more experienced. He's like 24, 25 years old. I would love Nkunku at Arsenal. I would. I would take him. Magambo says we're going to sell Pepe and get Asensio on the last day of the season. We all know this is going to happen. If we end up with Asensio, I'd be very disappointed. Is Anthony going to Bayern Munich? Is he really? No. Well, if he's going to Bayern Munich, that may mean that Serge Gnabry can come back. Oh man, that would be great. Yeah, but if you guys haven't taken some time to watch Anthony play, I would, because he's somebody that I just feel like plays the position the way I envision that position to be played. He's so tricky. He's quick, but he's not just a pace merchant. His skills are just out of this world. He's so fun to watch, but he's still very young, and he's adding goals to his game. And so if you don't watch Anthony play, I would say watch him play. Like, he's so good. He's so good. And those are the type of players I would expect Edu to be able to bring into the club. What's the point of having your connections if you don't use them? TJ says Anthony changed the game when he came on for Brazil against Colombia. Yeah, I mean, I like that guy. I really do. Yeah, I don't know about Asensio, you guys. I really don't. Tosif says, would you take back Serge Gnabry as a big summer signing? Look, if he'd be willing to come to Arsenal the way we are, take us as is, as who we are now, of course I'd take Serge Gnabry, 100%. Do I think that, of course, it would put pressure or whatever on Saka, but that's what we need. And we need more experienced attackers. Like, we need experienced people on each line. The defense, I feel like, is something it's already finished. It's done. They're all young and it's fine. But moving up the thirds, like, see at center midfield, we have Thomas Partey, and if we need to bring in somebody who's 25 years old, at least 24, 25 years old, that has some first team minutes under their belt. We do not need another kid in our midfield. Then moving forward, we already have enough kids in our front line. We already have Saka, Martinelli, and ESR who are all trying to develop at the same time. But if you could bring in a Serge Gnabry, then why not? I just feel like it's far-fetched without European football at the very least, and I still feel like at 27 years old, I think he's 26, 27 years old, he's gonna wanna play in Europe, so we would at least need that, but he did say if he came back to the Premier League, he would only come back to Arsenal, and if what you're saying is true, that Bayern Munich are looking at Antony to kind of maybe revitalize those wing positions. They have, Sané, they have, Kingsley Coman, maybe they are looking to zhuzh things up a little bit. I would take him. I think we'd have to do everything to get him. But yeah, I would take him. Yep, love Vinny Jr. as well. You guys know I love my Brazilian ballers. I don't understand why Edu is not bringing us more of them. I could have sworn the whole reason of having you here was because we were going to have a filter into our team. Because you look at what Juninho has done at Lyon. He's brought them Bruno Guimaraes and Paquetá. It was not just through like youth systems and young players through academies. He's brought them players that are like 21, 22, 23 years old to Lyon. And I thought Edu would do the same thing. And I'm just like, so are you going to get us anybody or like what's happening? I know he helped us with Martinelli and Gabriel, but I expect it to be like a never ending thing. Like we should be in the conversation for Antony. We should have been in the conversation for Vinny, and we just haven't been. Yeah. So, yeah. Tony says Vinny Jr. is Saka light, maybe. Yeah, Antony and Ten Hag, yeah. So just my last little thing to say, because we went over an hour, which is perfect. I want to be around an hour, but if there was anybody that I'd want to succeed Arteta, it would be Ten Hag. Like I said it on several different channels that I think Arteta is going to end up being somewhat of an Ollie for us. Like, and that's no disrespect to Arteta. I think Arteta is a much superior tactician, coach to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. But what I mean is that he will get us to a certain point within the next 2 to 3 years, and we'll be ready for somebody else to take us to that next level. And I would love it to be Ten Hag. I think there is a connection between Arsenal, Ajax, and Barcelona that's undeniable. And he would be somebody that I would want to take us to the next level if and when Arteta was ready to move on or we were ready to do something different. And he could bring Overmars with him. I'm big on managers matching the philosophy of what we're trying to do. And that's what I would want. So Ten Hag is somebody that every once in a while I'll peek in and watch Ajax play. And I'm just like, you would fit in perfectly here. That's what we need. So yeah, but that's going to be it for this stream. Again, come back at 10 p.m. UK time. George will be here. So for all of you guys who are like, where's George? George will be here 10 p.m. UK time. We'll be breaking down some of our build-up play during basically taking the best bits, which is a small amount of the game against Liverpool, and talking about our build-up play in those first 30 minutes. Also, our XG. How do we read it? How do we decipher it? How do we analyze it? Where do we really sit in terms of the way we score goals, the amount of goals we score, all that kind of stuff, and how we use the half spaces? That's what we're going to talk about at 10 p.m. So make sure you guys are subscribed. You guys come back a little bit later. If you guys like this time and you guys like this like earlier show, please let me know, because I only want to keep it if you guys like it. And as we go further into December, January, this will become more of a transfer show. So if you guys do like this time, let me know and I will keep it and I won't change it. We've been very kind of consistent on the 9 p.m., 10 p.m. UK time, but I wanted to give you guys something a little bit earlier just in case it's past your bedtime. So yeah, let me know. And I will see you guys in the next one.